What is going on, everybody? Thank you so much for joining me today. And in week 5, we're going to be talking about infrastructure as code and infrastructure as software. Now I'm going to show you a little bit of Terraform code here, but I do have literally an entire Terraform free course that I created right before this one. You could find it on my YouTube channel if you want to learn about Terraform. So I want to kind of keep this high level, but I do want to show you and talk to you about the different tools that are out there right now. So first and foremost, we have Terraform. Terraform is an infrastructure as code tool. You write Terraform with HashiCorp configuration language, or HCL. We're seeing variants of HCL pop up here and there. For example, Azure Bicep is written in a HCL-like syntax. Okay, but essentially, any infrastructure as code platform, there's a lot. You got several different vendors out there, several different tools, and really what they're for is to define your services with code. EC2 instances, virtual machines, S3 buckets, Azure storage accounts, VPCs, virtual networks, anything that you have to do manually from a service and systems perspective, you're going to use infrastructure as code for, and Terraform is definitely the hottest one right now. Now, once those, let's say, virtual machines are set up and created, you need a way to configure them. Maybe you have to install MySQL. Maybe you have to run updates. Maybe you have to start and stop certain services. That configuration comes from a configuration management tool, and I prefer Ansible. I know a lot of people love Ansible too. So Ansible is that configuration management tool that you can use to configure those resources. Now, I do want to point out that a lot of configuration management tools like Ansible, you can also use for infrastructure as code. However, it's not recommended because of configuration drift. Kind of one of those scenarios where, you could hammer a nail into wood using the other side of the hammer, but do you really want to do that? Next, we have a concept that's pretty much infrastructure as code with a general purpose programming language, and a lot of folks are starting to call it infrastructure as software. So it's the same thing as infrastructure as code, the same exact concept. The only difference is instead of using a configuration language like HCL or YAML or JSON, you're using a general purpose programming language like Go, Python, JavaScript, etc. And we're seeing these kind of pop up here and there. HashiCorp has a infrastructure software tool called HashiCorp CDK. AWS has one as well, which I'll show you in a second. But I would say that Pulumi is probably the most popular right now. You can use it across any major public cloud, so Azure, AWS, GCP. It supports a ton of different languages, C#, Go, Python, etc. It's definitely probably one of the most popular right now. And as infrastructure as software gets more and more popular, I am really curious to see what Pulumi is going to do in the market. And then finally, we have, because I love AWS, as I'm sure everybody knows, we have the AWS CDK, which again, it's the same thing as Pulumi. It's the same any type of infrastructure software. It's infrastructure as code using a general purpose programming language. Now, really quick, you may be wondering, well, why would I want to use, a CDK when I could just use infrastructure as code like Terraform? Well, here's why. You have way more extendability, in my opinion. So for example, if you use like infrastructure software, a CDK or something, you could write unit tests, mock tests. You can treat it like any other piece of software. You can deploy it like any other piece of software. I really love the fact that you can actually dive deep and test it and think about it from a software developer's perspective. And to be honest, it's actually really cool if you're thinking about getting into programming. Like, let's say you want to learn Python, but you're a cloud engineer. You're like, well, I don't want to build an application. I want to just like do cloud engineering stuff and cloud infrastructure stuff. Well, you can use a CDK like the AWS CDK or Pulumi to build out your virtual machines and build out your S3 buckets and build out everything that you would, but with, Python or Go or whatever. And that's how you could actually use these tools to learn programming. And with that, thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you again next time.